Welcome everyone to the 2025 Culture of Care Summit, our second annual summit, and creation of student governance, empowering students to have a voice in a culture of care. In this presentation, you will explore the benefits of governance in fostering a culture of care, empowering student voices, and inspiring leadership to create meaningful change in the university community. Our presenters will be Dr. Kimberlee Bow, Matthew Phillips, Craig Vanbury, and I turn it over to Matthew Phillips to give us the start and give us a little rundown on the presenters. And thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Actually, we have in place of Craig Vanbury, well, to add to, we have Assistant Professor James Bond, who's been involved with this from the very start. Craig is an active student here at the university, as well as a full-time consultant for a corporation, and so he was unable to make it today. But everybody here knows what's going on, so the presentation will not lose anything. We'll jump to the next slide really quick. Kimberlee, you want to just kind of introduce yourself and give us some background with the institution, and then James, if we can jump to you, and then I guess I'll go last.
Sounds like a plan. So my name is Dr. Kimberlee Bow. I graduated, as it is alluded to, last November with my doctorate from the university. And now I am excited to say I'm faculty here at UAGC, surviving my training at the moment. I'm excited to be here. I am a licensed professional counselor, dance movement therapist, and a huge advocate for the student voice.
And I'm James Bond. I'm a faculty member here in our introduction course and first year experience. I've been with the university for about 6-7 years now, and I'm very passionate about student involvement, supporting our students.
And my name, like Carla said, is Matt Phillips. I'm a student affairs program manager here at UAGC. Been here about 6 years. I have an MFA from the University of Texas at El Paso, and as an undergrad, I studied journalism at North Carolina Central University, where I was the editor of the student newspaper. So also have a huge passion for the student voice, and that's why I'm passionate about this project. So agenda today, overview, we're going to go over the UAGC institutional context and history of student governance, which there really isn't any. We're going to have Kimberlee talk about how this initiative got off the ground and where it started. She has been in from the ground floor, as has James. I was brought on later, but we'll talk a little bit about that. James is going to go over the benefits of student governance and the result of those benefits, how it improves the institution and the student experience overall, and everybody's experience, actually. And then I, along with Kimberlee and James, will talk a little bit about, not a little bit, a lot about our plans for forming student governance starting the next academic year, or this coming academic year, and where we are in our progress and what you can expect over the next 2 months as you start to hear more about this initiative.
All right. So once again, I do apologize for not being on camera. I did not intend to get ill. I do apologize as I kick this off. So as Matt just alluded to, history, right? Where did this come from? Where did it start, and how has it grown? Hence the picture that I chose of this beautiful plant coming to life, because this is kind of how this process has felt. So I can speak from my experience and speak from a place of I fully guess that there are other students who had similar ideas, who had similar thoughts, who had similar passions, and I want to acknowledge all those that I do not know who have come before me and are still holding those beliefs and those ideas about the student voice. So before we had the current leadership, back when I was maybe in my second year of my doctoral journey, I had written an email to previous leadership and said, with the idea of saying, hey, we need a student governance. Why don't we have a student voice? Why isn't there a student voice at board meetings or helping to make these decisions? Because all of these decisions impact us. And I noticed that, other universities had a student governance. Why didn't we? And that was a big question that I continued to hold, and was hoping that it would one day come to fruition, and it did. So Dr. Packard had offered opportunities for roundtables. He wanted to hear the student voice, which I am still very, very grateful for that he offered us that opportunity. And in one of those roundtables, he brought up the specific idea of student governance. And so myself and a few other students jumped at that chance and said, yes, we would love to be involved in this project. It means something to us. We'd love to put the time, the energy, and the effort into creating what we are going to be talking about today. And through that process, he set us up with faculty in terms of reaching out to faculty and staff and saying, hey, is anyone else interested in joining this? And together we started meeting bi-weekly, which was great. And that's actually how I got to meet some of the amazing people who've been working on this, like James. So big shout out to James because he's done so much, as well as Matt. Internally grateful to both of them. And in this process, as we were meeting every other week, we made it a point to also document the work that we were doing, making sure that as we started to develop certain ideas, certain thoughts, that it was via everyone's voice. It wasn't just like me making a decision or another student making a decision. We all had a voice in how we did this. And we hoped one day that it would be a model or be able to present on it like we are now because of all the work that we did. And it has, like I said, has paid off. And then Matt got drug into the process, too, somewhere along this journey, because we knew that we needed to have more engagement with the institution at large, which has been great. Like I said, there are so many wonderful faculty and staff, in addition to students, who really care about the journey here for all of us, which is great to see the empathy, the compassion, the devotion to students. And from there, we have since taken off. We've come up with different plans. We've come up with the Constitution, the bylaws, all those different elements that you'll get to hear a little bit about moving forward. And in this process as well, it was also working, things we learned along the way too, working with administrators, right? And we've had some great administrators who have come alongside and said, yes, please keep going forward. We've also learned about finding advocates and allies and what it means to show hard work and persistence, and also make some great friends and allies and colleagues in the process.
Awesome. I did want to add, so thanks for all of that, Kimberlee. The reason I kind of got brought in is I work in a situation in student affairs where I'm sort of like the nerve center of student affairs, and I know all the communication processes of the institution, sort of how to get things done. And so that's where I've been able to jump in later. But James, just while we're on this topic, do you want to talk about like kind of how you help the students sort of start to develop the mission statement and vision and like your background with student? Do you mind adding?
Sure. So my background is I started once I left the Army at a community college, and I was hired as a student activities advisor. And in that role, I oversaw about 45 clubs and organizations. It was a large community college. But one of my main jobs were supporting the student government. That university has like a student trustee on the governing board that is the associate student organization president. We had senators that represented each of our different programs. And my job was to help them build teams, help them kind of unite, get to know each other, work together well, explain how shared governance works from a student perspective, and then help them understand how to communicate effectively in the various meetings they were attending and work groups. And so it was a large task because many of them hadn't been in any type of leadership role like that. Like we might have had some people that were in Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts and different things like that, some church groups. But for the most part, this was their introduction to leadership. And so spending over 11 years in that capacity while I was earning my degrees, I just saw a lot. I understood a lot about how student governments can be impactive in a shared governance roles. Some of the things that we needed to think about, and so I got pulled in when Dr. Packard put out a call for any faculty that had experience working with student government. And when I met the students that were involved, they had a lot of experience, the ones that were kind of leading the program. And so I don't think that they really thought about those that might be coming that were had less experience in them. And so as we were talking about what we needed for the Constitution and bylaws and as we were developing how the processes were going to work, I was there to just kind of help them think about things that maybe weren't evident, that may not have been considered that they wanted to consider. It was a very collaborative process. I don't know, it probably went over about 2 months as we gathered information from other faculty and students on what we were really looking for developing. So that was kind of my role in the development process.
Awesome. Yeah. And I do want to add, there are other faculty have been involved as well throughout that process. Dr. Kristen Ballard, William Ballard, Dr. Stephanie Hill. So there's more too, I'm forgetting. So it's been I think, a very cross-functional group meeting for more than a year, intermittently and bi-weekly. So just for that additional context and the work we've been doing, this isn't sudden, I think is important to talk about. James, if you want to, start with the benefit list. So I do think, well, let me preface this by saying, asking what the benefits are for students in the institution was at the central of this entire process. And so that's why this is so important. And then I'll stop talking there.
Yeah, so this goes to my experience in the past working with student governance and seeing how it can help inform our process and procedures, make our offices and our support services and the things that we're presenting to the student government can play a huge role in really making sure that we're hearing the student voice, we're understanding any pain points in our programs or services, and we effectively serve the student body that we're trying to serve. So I came up with these bullet points, and I mean you can read what I put there, but I think at the heart of the matter is when we have a student government and those students that are getting to closely work with faculty, administrators, staff, they really give us a sense of where our students were, how our programs and services are being received, helping with actual participation and resources. I liken it to my work. Many of you probably know, like I've opened 3 different veteran centers in different schools. And one of the first things that I did that was kind of unique was bringing spouses and dependents into those veteran centers. And it was at the time very contrary to the popular opinion. We were concerned about having spaces on campus where veterans could be themselves and be comfortable, and they didn't want spouses and dependents there because they felt like that was their space. But what I noticed was when you included the spouses and dependents in the center, it allowed for them to kind of promote the services that veterans weren't using. It increased our utilization of programs and services. And also in those centers, issues that the veterans were dealing with at home, they had dependents and spouses there and I saw so many organic conversations come up that powerfully helped our veteran students. I believe the similar impact will happen by allowing students to see behind the curtain of certain things, understand how we make decisions, understand why certain things the way they are, and also influence some of those decisions and policies and procedures to make them more impactful and accessible to our students. So in a nutshell, that's what I believe this student government and student governance, allowing them into shared governance and becoming active participants, will do for our university.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do. So to follow up on what James was saying, maybe to make it, I think that's a really broad benefit. Some of the really specific things, maybe not too specific, but somewhat specific, might be students need input and productive influence on our policies. So we have policies that come into effect all the time. Do they have any say? No, they don't. We want to give them that say. Curriculum is another one. Kimberlee has been very adamant about, in the past in our discussions about curriculum being more inclusive of other cultures, other ways of other learning styles. So getting some feedback on that. Engagement strategy and institutional inertia. So, we have clubs and communities, we have UAGC Connect, but some students have given us great ideas about like texting threads they want for study groups. That's something we're trying to do through UAGC Connect. That's just one specific idea, but there are lots of others. Where we're headed as an institution, and then more leadership experience and opportunities for our students, right? So we want to create more opportunities for students to lead. A lot of our students, to your earlier point, James, do have great leadership experience, whether it's in the armed services or elsewhere, even in corporate America, in their own communities. So we want to leverage that for the benefit of all students. And if students don't have that experience, we want to provide that opportunity for them. What are our needs as an institution? That's key to this too. Student feedback and constant notification on barriers to their education and access to it. Feedback to refine, improve, or diversify our offerings. So right now, there are specific surveys that students take, like end of course survey, withdrawal surveys, and we get some feedback from those things if we assess them regularly. Students provide feedback to their academic advisors, but academic advisors are trained specifically to help students where they're at right now and get them moving forward with what they need. There's not always the greatest opportunity for individuals to filter things up in a way that is productive for the institution to make changes. So that's another gap we're trying to fill, right? We want students to be able to speak to us, to leadership on a regular basis. Where are we now in this process? So I'm going to go over this a little more in depth in a bit with some specifics, but Constitution and bylaws are complete. They were reviewed by all the stakeholders, by the student conduct. They were also reviewed, and we received feedback from the AZ Online student engagement team, as well as the Arizona Near You Network student body president, which includes AZ Online. Right now, they are sitting with Com and Mac review, which is a review process we have here at UAGC for all documents, and the student engagement team to finally approve, hopefully early April. The asynchronous leadership program is complete and available on UAGC Connect. We'll talk more about that, but that's something James developed. It's really awesome. Talks about all sorts of leadership styles, ways of communicating, time management. It includes a badging element in that platform, which is going to be really cool. I say here we're refining position descriptions and engaging students in UAGC Connect. We have a UAGC Connect join and lead group. About 100 students have joined it. So that's ongoing. They can read the bylaws and Constitution. They can look at some other documents as well. The position descriptions, James did those as well. They're done. They're in Common Mac review as well. So that's where we're at right now. I'm going to talk a little bit about how our student executive board will look. Again, this is based on all the stakeholders involved, multiple students, alumni, faculty, staff, lead administrators, and even the executive leadership team to some extent. Our student executive board, which will be called the United Associated Government Committee, will consist of a student body president, a student organization liaison. That's a position you haven't seen anywhere. It was designed by, in large part, Craig Vanbury, who couldn't be here today, an active student. Kimberlee's going to talk more about that position so we can get some clarification. And then there will be a student vice president, student secretary, and student treasurer, which are all pretty self-explanatory and traditional. Again, the one big innovation here is the student org liaison. And I think, Kimberlee, I'd love if you could talk about that after the slide, actually. We'll do this slide first. So what will the student executive board do? Okay, they're going to do a lot of things. James talked a lot about what they can do, what they may do, what they might want to do. Written into the bylaws specifically and the job descriptions are some of these things. So all these things are written in. We'll select them through an April and May application and interview process. The term will run for the entire academic year, so July 1 to June 30. They will complete the asynchronous leadership training I just discussed, developed by James, in June, preceding their term. And they'll meet with staff and faculty advisors. In this case, right now, it would be myself and James. They will also start meeting with club officers to start to develop those relationships. And then they will meet twice per quarter, with one meeting being a virtual town hall open to all UAGC students. So that would be a student executive board meeting conducted in an open Zoom webinar type format, perhaps similar to live learning if you're a faculty member, something like that. And the student president will meet at least once per quarter in the academic year with UAGC executive leadership. This mirrors what happens at AZ Online. It mirrors what happens at UA, although their structure is quite different in some respects. But the point is, the student body president will be able to meet with a key UAGC executive leader, whether that be the vice provost of online initiatives, dean of students, et cetera, and so on, once per quarter. And that's the basics of what they'll be doing. They'll be doing a lot more. They can run programming, they can run projects, they can conduct surveys, engagements, engagement strategy things. But we want it to be constructivist. We want students to talk about and figure out ways to do what they want to do. And we're here to help them do that. And yeah, Kimberlee, if you want to talk more about the student organization liaison, that would be awesome.
Happy to do it. So first, shout out to the current club representatives that are in this space. You know who you are, and the past and the future who are going to be taking on some of those leadership roles within the clubs. So as many of you, I'm sure, are familiar, UAGC has some great clubs. They have clubs for the human services, which I was a past president of. They have CAPSA, which is past secretary for myself, but does work with the Asian American community. The Psych Club does some great work and does as well as a yearly opportunity for students to present. Basically, our clubs do some amazing things with some dedicated individuals who make those things happen, as well as some dedicated staff and faculty who also help make these things happen as well. So the idea with the student liaison position is to actually engage the clubs, because the clubs that have so much to offer. In case you can't tell, I'm very biased. I think our clubs are amazing in terms of what they do for students. And if you've seen any of the past presentations from Culture of Care or the online learning, other students have talked about how the clubs have made a difference in their lives. So the role of the student organization liaison position is a connection between the student government and the club system, right? There's a way to have that connection and that bi-directional relationship. And I stress that because it is, and it needs to go both ways, where people can have an open dialogue and hear feedback and hear encouragement too. I don't want to undercut that, the importance of that too. It's nice to actually hear encouragement as well. What's going well? We want to hear everything. We want to be engaged in both. And the other thing is that the UAGC clubs are places where we already have student engagement. I'm not saying that there aren't some challenges with student engagement in the club system. I'm not saying there's not. And there are students who are currently actively engaged. They hold club leadership roles, whether it's president, vice president, whatever role it might be, but they're there. And where do they go after that too, right? It gives them a chance to also step into a different type of leadership role and gain new experiences as well. Which leads to this, right? These are already our emerging leaders who have dedicated time, who continue to dedicate time. And even, this is an observation. I have no data to back this up whatsoever. But even the people who leave the leadership roles tend to stay involved. This is just my observation, right? And because they care, right? And so this is a chance to continually to engage them, right? And again, bringing them into that space. And I come back to, again, the accountability piece, right? Because if we're talking about a student-led government, the student-led government is accountable to the student body too, right? That's the important thing. They're representing the voices of the students, right? And we need every opportunity we can to hear from the students so that way they are getting their voices heard. I mean, our student body is pretty unique. It's mostly working adults from different backgrounds. I alluded to earlier, I have a kid who, which is why I'm sick now, right? Who brings home everything under the sun, right? Like that's life, right? We have jobs where, that demand our time, and we have social lives, and right. So all these different pieces. And so we want to make sure those different identities and those pieces are being represented. And that's huge. And this role gives that opportunity to another way to show that. And come back to that collaborative approach, right? This is people working together. This is not an independent, like one person makes a decision type of style. This is what can we do together, right? It's a different way of thinking, right? It's that like that more communal perspective, that community together. What can we do together stronger when we're united than when we're not united? So that's kind of this unique opportunity with this student organization liaison position. That way we have more feedback, more engagement, more bi-directional work, more support for each other, right? I think this role could be really, really unique, and actually, I think total bias too, that other student organizations who have governments might want to consider this as their position, and we could actually lead the way in saying, hey, this is why this is such a unique and awesome thing that you may want to consider in the future, to really engage all those amazing people, all the students, and continue to build forward and be forward thinking.
Yeah, that describes it really well. I was going to add, so there's also a lot of things that are happening in clubs and organizations that this person could be privy to and help with connections that Kimberlee's talking about. For instance, today I just learned that the Student Veterans of America, our chapter here at UAGC, has voted in their leaders for the coming academic year. And so that information, is shared with the student executive board in an ideal situation. And we start talking about collaboration, because you need to know who those key students are across various organizations. So that's a really good example. Another great, Sharissa Arnold's here, a doctoral student. I got to know Sharissa through the Psych Club, I believe it was. And so, the idea is that we have this position, do exactly what Kimberlee said, and create this synergy. Last thing I'll say here, this idea around synergy, around connectedness, around being together, moving towards a goal, is enshrined in the bylaws and Constitution. We have a specific bylaw that asks that this position connect with AZ Online student governance structure, and even on-campus structure, not to do anything formal if not needed, but to explore those opportunities and communicate together. So again, enshrined in what we're doing, hopefully. I'm going to talk about the roadmap to formulation. Again, I said I sort of act as a nerve center in student affairs. Generally, people come to me when they need to figure out how to navigate the institution processes, because I've just had experience across a lot of them. In this case, James and I, along with the help of students, Craig, Kimberlee, who was a student at the time, and other faculty, kind of laid out a roadmap to what we needed to do to just get this going off the ground. Not all that stuff is listed here because there are other considerations, but just a broad roadmap overview. I'm just showing you a map, not taking you over all the territory. We needed to build our bylaws and constitution and get executive leadership team approval and feedback. We presented to that team our plan on, oh gosh, it was early January of this year after significant work. And they gave us their approval. They gave us some feedback. They said, keep moving forward, which is why we're here today. Official recognition from student engagement. I got a check mark here. That's ongoing. It'll be done first week of April. It's really just a checkbox, but we may need to amend the constitution and bylaws if we get any feedback from the compliance team, but I think it's going to be great. Like I said, student conduct has already gone over all that. And my leaders in student affairs have access to it as well. Organize and invite students to a monthly webinar to talk about what's happening with student governance. This was a request from Blake Naughton specifically. I've organized that. The first one is this Thursday tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific time. I'll be there. 18,000 students or so have been invited to this via email. I think there's about 60 or 70 registrations right now. And maybe I only get 1 or 2 there because people have jobs, people have families. But guess what? I'll be there waiting and happy to discuss it with anybody who is interested. We'll do that in April and May and June as well. Open applications and select student executive board. We need to do this. The application right now is sitting with the compliance team and the comm review team. It's been reviewed by multiple faculty members, alumni, and students. The application's done. We may have to make some revisions. We're hoping to get it out in mid-April. In fact, that's a timeline we really have to hit. Leadership training and terms for these student executives will commence right July 1. Leadership training will be in June. That's been developed. Just ironing out some kinks on the interface of it, but it's all dialed in and ready to go, and it's great. And then on the right side, you see like an upward trajectory, right? So I'm looking at April, May, and June right now because it's late March. Already complete. We've secured official recognition. We've built a group in UAGC Connect. Students are joining it now. We have about 100 students in there. Leadership training development done. So all that's under the complete. Craft and deploy job applications, or the application and the job descriptions for the student executives. Again, that's with the comm review. We're looking to do interviews and selections in May, and then the training will commence in June. One quick thing. Generally, we talk about student governance being elected positions based on our student engagement and how we work as an institution right now. We are doing an application process that was designed by James, including a personal statement of sorts, as well as some other elements, questions students have to answer. That's the way we're going to do it for now. That also models what AZ Online does. And so it fits nicely right now. Again, there are amendments in the bylaws that can be made based on the bylaws. So if students want to change that in the future, they could. They absolutely could, if they could garner enough votes from their executive board. So, that's just how we're doing it now. That's where we're at. What's next? Oh, open discussion. Let me think really quick if I forgot anything. I don't think so. We're open for discussion. James or Kimberlee, if you have something to add, do that now.
I'll just say, I talked a lot about what the students can bring to the university through this process. I just hope it's evident as well how much this can give to the individual students that take part and the student body at large. Like there's very few touch points here where students can really get to know faculty and staff, have that one-on-one conversation. I'm sure if many of us look back on our college experience, how many things we learned from a faculty member or a staff member that just took interest to us. And I feel like it's our duty in this online format to find ways to create these types of touch points for our students. I know the colleagues that I'm closest with, that I've talked to the most, they all bring that to their jobs, and they're all looking for ways to say the words or make the connection that makes a difference in someone's life. And this is one of the avenues that we're developing to do that.
All right, and I'll add my final thoughts here too. Is I think for people who have known me during my academic career, they knew I was a squeaky wheel. I definitely was not afraid to share my thoughts. And that was a good thing, right? Because it helps motivate action. So to all students out there, do not be afraid to be a squeaky wheel. Use your voice. It matters. It's important. I get tears in my eyes thinking about like even just saying this, because the student voice is so important in terms of making change, in terms of seeing what you need, in terms of helping and being an advocate for others. So speak up, share your thoughts, share your ideas, get involved in student governance. Be you, shine, be you, share that voice.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I don't know if I can bring it all together, but I was an adult student when I went back to school, and James, you hit on it. It's like one professor saying, "Hey, why don't you just write this article for student newspaper?" And then all of a sudden, that's my connection, and I'm getting federal work study money, and I'm making it through, and I somehow did it after multiple failures, and then I'm even raising my voice to Kimberlee's point because I'm writing in the student newspaper about specific issues. So it doesn't have to be that. I think student governance is another avenue, and so that's the heart of it. That's the essence of what we're doing, and we are doing it. It's going to happen. Yeah, I think if anybody has questions or thoughts or concerns, we'd love to hear them, or we can answer more specific questions if necessary.
And I've been monitoring. I see no questions, but this has been so informative. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Anderson, who has left her presentation to join us.
I just want to say thank you to the presenters for such a great topic. I think that it's always important to consider the scholars, right? If it were not for the students, we wouldn't be here. So thank you for your presentation. And I am going to thank everyone else for joining us. And if we have nothing else, I'll put in the chat. I think I have a schedule if you want to find out what's going on next in the culture of care. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Wonderful.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.